So welcome to the third episode of MIM Matters, where I am your host, Rebecca Bridgen, taking a moment today to explore marketing concepts with some of Maritime's finest marketers. And with me today, of course, is the well-known Mark Warner, who is currently Global Marketing Content and Communications Director for Lloyd's Register, although your remit has now expanded recently. So we'll talk a bit about that in a minute. But is also one of the board members to the Marketing and Maritime Initiative. So welcome, Mark. It's great to take a moment with you in your busy schedule.
Hi, Rebecca. Great to join you again. Really looking forward to this chat as well.
Fab. So in today's episode, we're going to explore, well, why sales and marketing alignment is so important. So we'll just go straight into it, I think, Mark. So we hear sales and marketing alignment talked about, but what does it actually mean? And why is alignment such a critical issue in B2B industries like maritime, where a sales cycle can be quite long and complex?
Obviously, when you look at B2B sales and everything that entails, you have that holy trinity of sales, product, and marketing. So product is important in this, in everything that we do as well. However, that alignment between sales and marketing, and what's quite interesting is sometimes you see sales and marketing directors, and I always wonder how they split their role, given how busy I am as a global marketing director. But why is alignment important? I think because everyone has a perception of what marketing should do, what sales should do, and if I've seen in companies over 20 plus years where if you're not talking and you haven't got that alignment, you can easily go down into, well, they should be doing this, and why aren't they doing this? Rather than, establishing straight away what are our common objectives, what are our common goals. Marketers have to talk the language of sales as well. Revenue, growth, sales KPIs. They have to understand what incentivize salespeople, and make sure that they are contributing to that as well. I think also and why maritime and B2B is slightly different is, B2B in B2B marketing and sales, buyers are not buying 95% of the time. So what that means is that you have to educate, you have to inform, you have to engage with your clients and nurture them through the journey. Now, a lot of salespeople, and I've worked in maritime software and for SaaS companies, they will just see marketing as bring me leads, marketing qualified leads that I can then take and fill my pipeline. There is an element of that, and it's a big debate in maritime marketing of how much should maritime marketing be concentrated on demand gen, performance marketing, and how much should be on brand awareness and engagement. And I think certainly from my experience, you need to have a very good mix, probably a 50-50 element. And that means also that the brand awareness is a lot more fuzzy for the salespeople because they do not see the full effect of that and that education engagement. And that's why you have to then start to bring metrics into play, awareness metrics, share of voice, and engagement metrics, because then that starts to show the salespeople that, yes, we are engaging with your clients, and look how it falls down into the pipeline. And that's the whole thing. And obviously, it's not just the stereotypical sales funnel, but you also have to look at customer advocacy as well. And salespeople play a big part in that. And that's about trust and engagement with their client base and making sure that they turn into advocates as well. So alignment is critical, but it's different, obviously, from a B2C because of those sales cycles and because of the fact that a lot of our role will be education and informing. And if you haven't got those metrics battened down, that's where, again, problems lie. And I just say, I've worked in a variety of companies, salespeople who are obsessed with MQLs, and then you have salespeople who are obsessed with events and PR because that's the tangible side that they see, and they don't realize that education, information, engaging with content, is vitally important as well. And they may not see that, so you have to kind of almost sell it into them that marketing fulfills a range of roles from that brand awareness and education and informing all the way down to customer advocacy.
Yeah, do you know, you've made me think of quite a few things. It's basically a cross-departmental culture that you just touched upon there. So both, and I've worked many a time where the sales and the marketing, they're like two silos that they don't speak to each other. But what they don't realize is they are a tapestry that should be woven together. You know, you've got intelligence that comes from what really works for sales that marketing would really benefit from knowing when they're considering the campaigns, et cetera, to get those hard, conversions. But also sales would really benefit from understanding, that softer side, as you say, that fuzzy, where, many a time I've experienced, salespeople going, oh, what are you actually doing, kind of thing. And I think we've all experienced that at some point, haven't we?
Yeah, and it's showing the value. I think that's the key aspect. And also, I include customer experience insight into that mix as well. Marketing plays a huge role. Looking at the market data, shipping has many different market data sources. So somebody needs to analyze that. Somebody needs to almost do that situational analysis, and that's in Lloyd's Register, that's our market insight team. They take that, and then of course we look at that, we apply that, work with the commercial team, and then apply that to the value propositions and our target addressable market as well. So there's a kind of real segmentation that's done, and salespeople have to be part of that process and have to understand that process. I think the other thing to say is also with it's the way your sales team structured as well. I've worked in teams which are very regional teams, and yes, this is in my region, so this is my lead. But I've also worked where we have strategic key accounts, and they may be global strategic key accounts, but we have a strategic key account manager who's accountable for all of that and all the operations across the globe. And so it's just kind of, with strategic key accounts, they're more of a, you take more of an account-based marketing approach to that. How do you engage? Have you got the right contact strategy for that strategic key account? How do you make sure that you engage with the influencers who will make decisions on new building or new construction or advisory work, etc. Right? So it's also building that kind of that approach. Some will be straight through the door, and at Lloyd's Register we have transactional products which are $500, and of course that is more into demand gen and MQLs and little validation of those MQLs because they've expressed an interest to buy, so you pass that straight over to sales. And then of course you have that account-based marketing approach where you have specific strategies and tactics around an individual account or a cluster of accounts, for example, the big container lines, and then you kind of you have a value proposition for those cluster accounts. So different approaches as well, but it does involve always talking to the sales team, the commercial team, understanding what are the client needs, the pain points, the challenges, and how do we address that through differentiated value propositions.
Absolutely. And the sales team are quite often the ones who have that discourse face to face. So and they'll have the bits of information they know always really rings true or resonates. And actually that intelligence could be then passed to marketing to go, oh, okay, well, that will inform. And meanwhile, marketing is reinforcing, those conversations that the sales team's having, under in the background. And it's all very, very clever and very complex.
Yeah, and just to add to the mix is, and to use the terminology of Byron Sharp and author of How Brands Grow, is Maritime is seeing what he deems as new category entry points. So new products and services, new areas that companies can move into. So, for example, let's take wind-assisted propulsion. The wind-assisted propulsion was a kind of, it's very much a new category entry point. Now, what you need to understand is clients want to be educated and informed about that. There's massive issues around stability, around are manufacturers achieving the targets or the results that they say they're receiving. So there's a whole validation and a verification process as well. But that's a new category entry point. So from a marketing perspective, you want to dominate that with thought leadership. That's the first building block is start going out there and providing thought leadership and credibility and use cases and saying, hey, we're here, we're in this category entry point. But then it's a combination of sales, because it's an education and enablement for them as well, and making sure that you critically sales enable the team so that they're able to go and sell that, and they understand fully the full value proposition that you can offer. It's sales enablement. Where does that move into a sales enablement team with the commercial team? Where does it stop? Where does it stop with marketing? Is it marketing produces the collateral and then it's over to the sales team? Is marketing, getting the feedback? Is this collateral working? Do you understand it? Are you fully sales enabled? Can you articulate the value proposition, the narrative, etc.? And that takes a lot of work. Sales enablement isn't something that you can kind of, there you go, hand it over, go and do that. I mean, I've worked in companies where, you have a commercial excellence team and sales enablement team who are there to kind of, manage the gap between sales and marketing, make sure the quality of data as well. And that'll lead me on to lead management, because, contact data quality, and also following the lead all the way through. Vitally important, as I said, in those demand gen transactionable products. If you can't do that, you cannot see the value that marketing is bringing. So ensuring that there is a lead management process and that is being adhered to. I'm sure I'm not the first marketer to say, I've seen lots of times where great campaigns have, when you start to look at the pipeline, you go into Salesforce, you see 0, 1, and you're like, but we know that's having an impact. And it's like, and as soon as you go to the sales team, oh yeah, we had an opportunity, but I created a new opportunity and I didn't put a campaign ID because I didn't realize I had to put a campaign ID. And of course, all the value of marketing is suddenly lost. You cannot prove that demand gen. So I think sales enablement, lead management, understanding of the role of marketing, and as I said, particularly as it comes to engaging and informing and thought leadership. A lot of people still see thought leadership as a PR or a bylined article. There's one of the things that I'm very proud of is that we've created these content brands that are everlasting in a way, that are multi-year, and people start to understand what that brand means, and obviously that helps you package all your thought leadership into one area. It's very good with SEO and PPC, and you start to then draw people in. People want to engage with that content, and they want to start having conversations around potential propositions, and that can be everything from alternative fuels to wind assisted propulsion to AI or autonomy, etc. And I think that's important. You want to get away from what we really need is an event, or what we really need is for you to write me a press release. And I even see now that people are using ChatGPT to write press releases and then throwing it over the fence and saying, hey, can you go and publish that? Those types of things, is that understanding of how we use content to then fill the pipeline. And also, as I said, advocacy is important as well. It's not just when we've won this contract, it's how we engaging with those clients, how are we improving their net promoter score, their CSAT score, how are we actually then moving them into advocates for our products and services. And that's where working with them, engaging with them, case studies coming out on the back of that's vitally important. And the commercial team has to play a role in that, because they are the point contact, and so they have to be there. You see lots of times where, okay, we've done this, we've won this contract, can we get a case study? Oh no, it's not part of the contract and they don't want to do it. And it's like, yeah, and then you lose all that advocacy and you lose that credibility. And of course, that goes back to being seen as a trusted source and a trusted advisor, and educating and informing as well, right? So it's a perpetual loop.
For me personally, I would love to know this, and I'm sure actually every other marketer would love to hear your thoughts on this. Can you share an example, and give some practical tips, say? And I love learning that there was a department in between sales and marketing, and I thought that's a great idea because it's so needed actually, if the company's large enough, of course. But actually, can you share examples of what good practical tips you could do to create the measurable results, what practical things could they do and put in place in the strategy of how the two work together?
Yeah, I think the best example, and it's probably when you take a product and then you take it to market. So the kind of the real where I've seen real synergies is being involved right at the start of that product cycle, right? So in the idea stage, there's plenty of product teams who will kind of say, okay, we've done everything we need to do. Over to you, market. Go and put the press release out and go and prepare all the collateral. But one example I can give, I won't name the company, but we were launching an IoT product, and what I was brought in with the product team and the commercial team, sat around the table saying, hey, we think, and it had come from the commercial team. The idea had come in from the commercial team because it had come from the client. So, it's kind of client feedback had led to the development of this product. We all sat around the table, right, here's our process, here's our product process, development process. This is what we're going to do. However, we think that we can launch this in about 9 months' time. Mark, what do you need? And what are you going to do? And how's that going to line? And of course, what I wanted to do is go and educate and inform the market about IoT in the maritime industry. So commissioned a piece of research. That process starts. Then obviously the sales team start to kind of feedback further. That product gets iterated. So kind of, into a minimum viable product. It starts to go through the product gate process that we had at the time. When it gets into gate one, it's like, okay, are we ready for this? I'm brought back in, we're on track. I'm like, okay, well, our research will hit the market in, 4 months' time with the product released in 7 months. And we keep checking in. Commercial they start suggesting clients to talk to as part of this research. So we get clients embedded into the research as well, potential prospects who would buy this product. And then, of course, we go through the different gates. We get to, we launch the research at it pretty much aligned with gate 2. So that's as we start to test the product. And then, obviously, so the research is in the market. We do what we do well, make sure that, it's covered by all the industry journalists. It's, we distribute it to our full client list. We make sure that they start engaging with that content and understanding it, and they start to come to us and ask questions. And then 2 months later, we launch the product. The product is commercial service introduction. The sales team already, they've had the research, they've had the conversations. We literally signed 15 companies almost within a week of launching CSI launch. It wasn't there you go and do a press release with 2 weeks to go before commercial service introduction. Yeah. It had been a very planned approach. And of course, we broke through, we smashed our targets. And that was sales, product, and marketing, that holy trinity, working together all the way through the process. And then measuring that, that campaign, back to that kind of sales enablement, they had all the collateral available. They had, the campaign IDs were all set up by the sales enablement team, and they were able to tag those. And immediately you saw, your funnel started to fill up, and we were, closed one, which was fantastic. It's the first time I've seen, we'd smashed our target within about a month because of all of that groundwork that had been done as part of that, right? So I think that's the key, and then keep going back and making sure. Now, not all campaigns run as smoothly because we'd hit a sweet spot of people looking for a product, and I think once you've got that sweet spot, but if it's just a marketing, you only do this, and we're not going to tell you about that product roadmap, then that really, everything else, you're playing catch up, right? You're playing catch up on that. Whereas we were very clear on what we wanted to achieve, what our targets were, what the sales was. Sales were fully enabled and ready to go straight on CSI. And that's, that's a great example of all three departments working very seamlessly together.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect example really of showing just what communication and everything being clear across all departments. It's not a case of you only need to know that, and you actually everybody needs to know everything. But also it's really nice to think about, you know, the three different teams sharing the wins of each other. You know, sales team sharing the marketing wins, marketing sharing the sales team wins, product sharing the wins of their product, you know, being sold so well. So, and it's about that celebration and realizing it's their targets for everybody. Yes, okay, it's specific to, you know, marketing, whatever, but actually that's fundamentally your target as well. And taking that ownership as well. I think it's so easy to just be like, well, that's not my target, I don't need to worry about it. But actually you do, because you're all in it together. You're all working for the same end, but just from different aspects.
Yeah, absolutely. And the best part of that was the sales VP, who obviously smashed targets, came to me and said, Mark, you've taught me about the value of content, because it was the research that kind of got the market talking, asking questions, and was kind of, you know, leading down to, you know, here's a product that solves your challenge that you're going to have. So, you know, it's the sales team who were, you know, sometimes quite skeptical of, you know, why are they doing the content? Where's my event and where's my PR? Were, you know, then, okay, yeah, now we understand why we're doing this, right? There is a kind of intrinsic link of, you know, top of funnel or out of funnel education awareness activity all the way down into kind of, you know, a desire to buy and, you know, providing use cases and customer advocacy as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing I did want to ask you was, how does alignment affect the brand narrative and the way that the company's perceived externally? You talked about clients being brought in, and that you basically got advocacy there as well, haven't you?
Yeah, and it's you know, you want to ensure that the sales team are aligned, particularly, you know, this period where there's geopolitical challenges, there's differences of opinions. You know, what you don't want is a commercial colleague standing up on a podium and saying something that is different. You know, they may see it from a, you know, a kind of single point of view. So, you know, we and when I say we, I'm talking more from my, you know, the communications team's perspective, is, you know, vitally important to have commercial leaders very close and aligned with your narrative and your lines to take around particular issues. You know, if you allow a vacuum to exist, then that's obviously where problems arise. So, you know, making sure that you've got approved and signed off lines to take is vital. As I said, particularly in a geopolitically charged environment, and also making sure that they understand, you know, what are the key findings from any piece of research that we do. You know, one of the I guess where, you know, one of the learnings from doing content over 10 years, 20 years actually, is that, you know, not everyone wants to read an 80-page report on the intricacies of IoT or autonomy in maritime. You need to say, you need to distill that at different levels. And of course, obviously, the AI tools like ChatGPT help to a certain degree, but sometimes you lose the nuances of messaging through AI. So, you know, you still have to make sure that and validate that. But ultimately, you want to provide, you know, something from an elevator pitch sentence about the report, you know, to one slide, to 5 slides, to the full deck. And that's what, you know, what we've learned, and what my team now try to do on every piece of content or research content that we put out into the market is provide those different levels, because I know that there are commercial account managers out there who read everything, you know, word for word, and I know that there's some who just like just tell me about it, and then I'll tell the clients that's what that's what this report brings, and then ultimately give me somebody to talk to. Who's the SME that I need to talk to and identify to really tell the story and the narrative as well. So, you know, it's important to kind of break anything down into digestible chunks, and, you know, make sure that it's you know, part of any of your sales teams lines to take, battle cards, if you want to use that expression, that they can tell that story in succinct ways and make sure that story lands.
And I guess if they've been involved in the beginning as well, that's you're more sold to take that perspective, aren't you? Rather than if you're being told that you must say this and you haven't been involved in it at all, it's like, oh, I'm being told what to say. But actually, if you feel like you've contributed to an element of that, then you're embedded in that as well.
Yeah, you've got skin in the game, right? And so, and I think that's a very good point, Rebecca, because I've talked about when we were brought into a product process, but also I'm talking about product and commercial being brought into a marketing process, right? So what we have to be very aware of is we can't go and develop content in a silo, right? That silo has to be driven, and we spend a lot of time with SMEs and commercial teams saying, okay, what do we think is the right, what's the challenge that our clients are facing, and that can be everything from alternative fuel decisions to techno-commercial decisions around energy transition strategies to retrofitting wind-assisted propulsion or propeller optimization, etc., etc. And once you've established that, and you've established that clients are facing that issue, then it's making sure that the commercial team are fully aware of that, and that you're going to provide, because ultimately it's that trusted advisor element of, I've got something that you will want to read, you will want to engage with, and we can help you with a product and solution further down the line, right?
It's like you've talked about bringing the product to market and the communication between the two, but what sort of actual things? Was it a monthly meeting? Did you have like a board where you put ideas down? What did you physically do to make sure that everybody was aligned and the communication channels were open, and you all, all the teams felt the joy of smashing those targets, which ultimately is what we want to feel at the end, isn't it?
Yeah, so project management plays a role. As much as everyone likes to say, "Oh yeah, I'm always talking to commercial colleagues," you still need those dates in the diary. You still need to have those conversations. I think also what's important is open to ideas as well. You can't say, okay, this is a marketing thing, so I'm gonna be closed on this, or this is a commercial. Don't tell me how to sell. Don't tell me how to market. Don't tell me how to develop a product, right? That you have to take away those barriers, because people will bring different levels of expertise and experience. And you've got to be open to that, and then kind of also reiterate. And I think that's a vital thing. I think sometimes product teams get very precious around a product, and actually have they evaluated everything there? Because ultimately marketing shouldn't be just a promotional activity. If you look at the 4Ps, right? Promotion. If you did a very straw poll around maritime marketing, most people would say, yeah, it's promotion and place that's there, right? Where actually, what I've seen and where I've seen failures is in pricing. It's like you do everything, you get everything right, and it's kind of like the pricing element, then we're pricing too high, and we're not meeting targets, right? And it's who's accountable for that pricing, who sets that pricing. Is it just the product team? Is it the commercial team? Is it commercial and product, or is it marketing, because they can bring insights in? One thing that marketing, and this is also certainly the role of our insights team, is looking at competitors, looking where does our product sit from a kind of promotion, place, price, product value proposition perspective. You have to do that, because otherwise you can get 3 of the P's bang on, the product can be good, but you're 25% more expensive, you're not going to hit your targets. So I think, and that particularly that issue, that's where you need commercial feedback and alignment. Otherwise, if they just say, oh, you don't get any feedback, or they don't tell you till 6 months down the line that actually the real reason for this is price, right? That is too late. that you've kind of, you've lost everything that marketing's built up, particularly if you've done a research project, you've really kind of bought, thought leadership. And it's a reputational risk as well, right? Because, and suddenly going with a higher price, everyone will go, yeah, they're far too expensive. The next product you bring down the ramp, you're going to have to overcome that reputation of being, far too expensive, and that is a big that's a big issue as well.
And going back to the original question about the sort of practical elements that you can take, and you were saying project management, so you could do like project management tools like Trello and things like that. But actually, it's yes, you can put these practical things in place, but you're also looking at cultural team change, and how do you get that culture change? And that is really a real sweet art, and which leads to the next question, which is, what role should leadership play in bridging the gap between sales and marketing alignment? And actually, I think maybe we've just started to answer that with the culture aspect.
Yeah, and that's certainly also something where you have to be aligned with. You want to hear the warts and all story. Sometimes commercial colleagues will paper over the cracks and say, well, it's a relationship thing, or we're just too expensive. But it's like, but what does that actually mean? What are they expecting, this value proposition? If you're making a Rolls Royce, but you're saying, trying to sell it to somebody who only wants, a Mini, it's kind of, well, then that's the issue, right? Is, what is there, and what's the that propensity to buy is, are they, willing, and willingness to buy is vital, and that should be part of that whole process before you take a product to market.
I had a great idea. I mean, I don't know if anybody else does this, but if you start doing this, you heard it here first. I had an idea of secondment, actually. You could, have, someone from, each member of your sales team do, a day in the marketing office, and vice versa, and the product team. And actually, then you get a real appreciation for, what goes on, the aspect. But not just the appreciation. You might then come away with ideas like, marketing people are very creative. So they might go, I had a great idea or a solution for the problem that I found out about in sales. Why don't you try this? And they would never have, thought of that. And vice versa. Sales, well, why don't you pick up the phone and do X, Y, Z? Oh, I didn't really think about that, because we've all got these different talents, which is why we're in these different departments. But actually, you could solve some of the issues. So anyway, secondment, that was my idea.
It's what are you doing to address your customer challenges? What are their pain points? What can we do from creating propositions, from educating and informing, and that's vital. As hark back to 95% of B2B buyers are not in buying mode. So it's that education, inform, nurture, engage. What can we do and prove the value of those activities to your clients as well? And then ultimately, what can we give you that shows the value that we bring to the table, and how does that also equate to other key stakeholders like the product team as well?
Yeah. I love that. Thank you. Well, that's all we have time for today in this episode of MIM Matters with our guest and board member of Marketing and Maritime, Mark Warner from Lloyd's Register. So until the next time, Mark, goodbye.
Thank you, Rebecca. Loved it as always. Thanks very much. Cheers. Bye.